G'day and welcome to On The Esky, an Aussie sports podcast where we like to wrap up the week that was in sport, dribble a little, discuss pertinent issues relating to mankind and whatnot. And one of those is the start of the Indian Premier League. It will start next weekend, so what better time than now to preview the upcoming season. We'll kick off the show by looking at the 10 teams, looking at any ins and outs, and giving some, I want to say predictions, although it's very unpredictable sport and league. But we'll definitely have a look at the teams and give our thoughts. Plus a bit of footy, rugby league. The Broncos are undefeated, 50,000 in there at Suncorp on Friday night. Fair few people over the river at the Gabba, but unfortunately someone turned off the lights. Power outage, climate change. Can't keep up with the demand. And then a bit of a sort of quicker wrap-up to the show. The NBA, the playoffs are around the corner. A bit of March Madness, if anyone watches college ball. I don't really. And then the final round, we often talk about the NFL and soccer. Soccer's on international round. Not a whole lot for the NFL for a few weeks before we preview the draft. A little bit of F1 and UFC to wrap it up. If you're watching on YouTube, you can skip to the sports that you like. Please check us out on the socials. We like to kick off the show by shouting a beer. Sean, you always like to get baseball in there.
Yes, sneaky beer. and it's usually this man as well that gets a shout a beer.
He's had a few. Spoke about Sam Kerr last week. This bloke's had a couple. Who is it?
Shohei Ohtani, who had the game-winning strikeout in the World Baseball Classic, which I guess is essentially their World Cup, beating the USA 3-2 against his teammate and Mike Trout, who had loaded bases essentially, and was the USA, I think, were coming back to it. But that's first win for Japan of the World Baseball Classic, and I think Jimmy was saying 14 years a minute ago. So, impressive result to see him, of course, continuing his dominating run as both a hitter and a pitcher in baseball, and then to get Japan over USA. I thought that was worthy this week of a shout of beer from me on the end of the table.
Enjoy the beer from Sean. Shohei Ohtani. I'm going to shout a beer. This has been a lot in the news over the last few days over here in Australia. Joseph Suali'i is going to take the bag to go over to rugby union and make a fair bit of money. Some reports estimating up to $1.6 million a year. As the great Peter V'landys of runs two sports at the same time fame. Said it's hard to blame Joseph for going to rugby and considering it as his future when he's going to be paid twice the money for doing half the work. A good little shot at rugby union and being able to hide out on the wing or outside centre.
I'm pretty sure every NRL commissioner said the exact same thing. I think they said it when Wendell left, when Matt Rogers left, when Lottie left, when Sonny Bill there. I was like, they'll go over there and won't have to do this much workload. Of course, sending the stick that rugby union is not as hard as the rugby league is, of course.
That's it. Did you see the cheese comments as well?
Yeah, the cheese comments was funny. A $1.6 million wing is not going to help the Wallabies beat the All Blacks, which is probably
fair bit of truth about that.
But the question is, will he play wing if he makes the Wallabies squad, or whether he actually steals a fullback role there? Will be
good question.
Time will tell for that one. But
that's the big caveat is the time, that it won't be until 2025. So he's still got all of this year and all of next year to play out for the Roosters. Look, for mine, I am shouting him a beer because, son, take the money. A lot of people like to say, where's the loyalty in sport, etc., etc. You've got a young man here who can go out and essentially double his wage. I say good on you, mate. Go get the money and then maybe come to the Dragons after that.
Well, I think it's perfect timing essentially because World Cup's in 2027, so he'll leave, probably make the Wallaby squad, play union for 3 years, play the World Cup, and then he'll be free. By that time, Teddy's probably will retire because I think he'll be 37 by then.
2027, man. I can't plan until next week.
But he'll be, if he plays well, of course, in the union, then there'll be plenty of teams that want him as one. The Roosters, of course, will probably want to throw money at him, and he'll be 26 or 27 himself. So in the prime, essentially, to get a bag and come back to rugby league.
Teddy will be 34 in 2027. But Suaalii he's only 19 now, so he'll be peak.
Oh no, I've overestimated his age. Yeah, he'll be
24. Yeah. But yeah, good on you. Rugby probably needs all the help it can get. You've definitely heard that if you've listened to this podcast.
Yeah.
before.
Besides this, what has rugby been doing the last 6 months?
Super Rugby.
Brumbies
Brumbies,
scoring 60 points every week in, week out. They just haven't played in New Zealand teams yet.
True that. Monks, who are you shedding a beer this week?
Yes. So following on from Sean's theme last week, I am shouting Cowboy Cerrone a beer this week. So it was announced today, I assume, at the UFC today, that Cowboy Cerrone will be entering the UFC Hall of Fame, the modern arm of it, I suppose. So obviously one of the great stalwarts of the UFC lightweight division as well. Just reading off, I was just looking at some of his stats earlier. So he has 6 fight of the night throughout his career, tied second most wins in the UFC history at 23 wins with Andre Arlovski there, tied second most for finishes in the UFC. Just bringing up his record there for the last couple.
Yeah, I think he held I was trying to work out the run. He had a record of, I think he had like 7 or 8 fights in like a 2-year span. He was one of those guys, if the UFC needed a dude to fill in, he was on speed dial. And he'd fight really close together. Well, look at that one. He fought on the 3rd and then fought on the 15th, 15th of the same month, 15 days later. So, he was excellent in that kind of role. Unfortunately, never, I think, actually won a belt in the UFC.
Never got that belt.
Yeah, but one of those long-term guys that we grew up on the UFC.
Yeah, that's it.
2 decades.
And in that long streak of just fight after fight, it was winning as well. Like just putting up awesome
names
performances
as well. Like there's heaps of names. Like I talked about Benson Henderson. He beat him, and he just retired himself after a long run. So there's heaps of names on there that you just go through, and he covered them all.
There's a run there through 2014, 2015, 2016, where he's fighting 4 times a year, and his only loss was to RDA in 2015, for the belt.
And probably his worst fight in that span as well.
Just briefly, obviously, the bloke deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Was he one of those guys that maybe pushed it a little bit too long later in his career? Finished with 6 losses and a no contest.
Yeah. Well, you have a look at some of those names in the losses column, and
McGregor, Gaethje, Ferguson.
The start there. So maybe back in 2019. There was always a possibility of him fighting back and getting back into form, but then definitely over the last year or so, I suppose age being 39 now probably showed a little bit, and he got found out.
Yeah, the game's moved on and progressed. It was pretty interesting because it was a surprise to him. His family kind of kept it secret, so he was a bit surprised on the broadcast. A bit of tears in the eyes. So it was a lovely kind of sentiment. And I think him, Jules Pulver. And Anthony Silva will go in together. So they're kind of announcing the class, and I think it's like June or July they will go in.
Enjoy the beer, courtesy of the Esky Cowboy Cerrone. Boys, mop of the week. There was actually a fair few nominations this week. Often we struggle to put one together. But we're going to be talking some rugby league coaches. Sean, can you kick us off with this one?
Well, Anthony Seibold was photographed during the week having a snooze at Macca's after a heavy drinking session with his mates, and it's a pretty Australian thing to have a snooze at Macca's.
Yeah, I was going
to say this isn't really a.
If this is a mop of the week, then I need to have several mops.
I'm pretty sure we've all done this. Had a nap after a long.
I would have been nominated for this week as well.
You go for
really?
Yeah.
Well, possibly.
Yeah, go for
it was very close.
Greasy quarter pounder, and just have a quick nap sesh while you recover a little bit.
There is something about that, the way that the disgusting combination of the cheese and the grease and the onions and the special sauce.
It's the grease.
Hits you after a few squee moi mois on a Saturday night. My goodness,
Yeah.
I'm not a big Macca's man outside of after
Yeah.
having a few.
Yeah.
So look, interesting that we've given him a mop here, but I can see definitely where the appeal is. That's
the dinosaurs and media beat it up as like he's a public figure, blah blah blah.
Oh,
You shouldn't be
yeah.
doing that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But you, and it was for mop worthy. That's probably the least bad thing he could have done this week. But I think the memes, the photoshops, have been
memes
very
out of
good out of it. So yeah.
One that you sent was Anthony Seabolt firing up the Manly Seagulls last night, and we'll talk about the round 4 of rugby league in a second. But yeah, it was him having a snooze, and Manly seemed to have a snooze in the second half. Bit of gear like that. So it's a double mop. And this one, look, as an organisation, I think this one is probably fair. We just watched the Dragons lose.
Conceded 40
points to,
second week in a row
to the Cronulla Sharks, going down 32 points there on Sunday night. And the Dragons, poor Hook, he's got the plethora of Australian journos or rugby league journos want him at the moment. A lot has been sort of speculated as to how long he will last this season, and the Dragons themselves have added fuel to the fire by saying that he's got to reapply for his own job next year. It seems like the writing is on the wall for poor Hook.
Yeah, and it's such an odd thing, I guess, to do coming into round 3 of the season. Like, there's some chat.
Give it to Origin.
Yeah, well, there's some chat that they've already got so many interested coaches that in the job that they want to open it up and start getting people to apply, so include yourself, etc. Which still to me it seems silly that you'd publicly make the statement that he's got to reapply for his own job. Considering that we knew they were a team that was going to probably struggle, they trying to fight off to stay off the bottom of the ladder. And I don't know, to send your team that, hey, the coach is coaching at the moment was most likely on his way out, just kind of shoot yourself in the foot is the way I feel it is.
Doesn't instill any confidence for the fans in him, doesn't probably bode well for his own psyche. The players have been pretty public in trying to support Hook. A lot of the Queensland contingent sort of came down because of him, and I think the problems at the club go a long way past the coach. I think there's problems with the board,
which is probably why this became public knowledge, etc.
The front offices. It just seems like a bit of a shit show. You look at the crowd there at Jubilee tonight, very lackluster. It's a shame as a fan of the club and for a club with such a proud history. And we spoke about it in our season preview and said the merger clubs never had a wooden spoon. The Dragons, the last time they got the wooden spoon was close to 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not good optics. Publicly, it's publicly humiliating your coach, I think.
Yeah, but even for the playing group, like if he's in there in the sheds at halftime trying to G him up and they're getting stuck into it a bit, they're just like, well,
you're not going to be here next year.
You might not be here next week, kind of thing.
I suppose that's it. Like,
how are we going to lift and you can see what the Dolphins do for Wayne Bennett, etc. Like, how are you going to get the same kind of energy or morale to boost to get your troops up for big games? And we've seen in the last 2 weeks, Dragons essentially wilt in the second half and let in big scores. And we've got the Dolphins next week, concede another 40, and they could, those dinosaurs in the media will be after him with everything, pitchforks and the like.
Yeah, that's it. It is kind of like a double-edged sword.
Dinosaurs with pitchforks is not a bad image.
Isn't that movie 65 out at the moment with the fake Darth Vader from that show that you guys watch? But yeah, I am picturing dinosaurs with pitchforks. They've only got very short arms,
Or T-Rex.
Some of them,
that's true.
A brontosaurus maybe using in his mouth or something.
Swinging the pitchfork.
It's a double-edged sword. Like, obviously, probably try and get some motivation out of Hook to keep pushing, keep performing, to keep his job, I guess. But then, like, when you are putting up losses, it's sort of just pile on. Like, you hear it from all angles.
Well, add to this week's news as well that they've traded away veteran player in Aaron Woods. He's probably been playing unders the last couple of years. But, again, a veteran player you trade away for young talent that hasn't played first-grade games again, it kind of says like you kicking at the can down the street, you're pushing it to next year kind of thing.
Very short-sighted as well.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
Yeah, I don't hate the trade, but I meant the semantics and like the visuals of like in the same week you say, hey, Griffin's going to have to reapply for his job, and you trade away, 200-plus gamer in Aaron Woods.
But admittedly is nowhere near the player that he once was.
He was.
They're
offloaded essentially.
Yeah, you could view that as an investment in your future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're investing in the future, not focusing on now.
And they're not concerned about 2023.
Yes, that's my point.
Yeah. But then, like you mentioned before, Pep's like the players that came to play for him, like what happens to them, those guys if Hook leaves, like that's your leadership team. Yeah, that's your leadership gone.
A team is Ben Hunt.
All I can say is thank God for the fucking West Tigers, boys.
Yeah. And we'll talk about them a little bit later on, but I think we should finish the mop segment up. Do you want to talk about the lights going out at the Gabba?
Turn off the lights in here, baby. 40 minutes of lights out football.
Was it really 40 minutes?
Yeah, 38, I think. Yeah, round up.
Always round up.
Yep.
Billions, trillions.
Well, they like to do it at the cashier, don't they? You're not getting away with 38 cents anyway. You're going to pay even 40. The lights went out at the Gabba, and you'd think as a player, playing a pretty physically demanding sport, at least for your soft tissue and cardiovascularly, having to sit out for an extra quarter while the lights fire back up.
Yeah. Well, the Lions were very lucky in this because they had a 40-point lead and managed to only hold on by
9, I think. Yeah.
And Fags was saying that they were told to stay in the rooms, and the Melbourne team was on the pitch warming up, so they got like an extra 5 minutes to warm up. Whether that played a part in them being a bit underprepared, but the game was so slow that period. I think everyone was kind of had all the lactic acids, and they were struggling to keep going.
Understandably, yeah.
So the D's
playing an extra almost hour later than you expected to.
Yeah,
as well.
the D's were just slightly warmer, and I almost ran it home. But it was quite interesting. I guess Gabba is a bit of an older stadium that all those lights run off the one power grid, and was by reports a cable coming into the stadium that's shared with other things.
I saw one of the lights was like actually on fire.
Yeah, it blew a light, but the report was the cable into the ground, which I think shared with the not just the ground but the surrounding areas, had an issue, which is why they had power outage. So they had to get that fixed to then fix the rest of it. But it also I think had to isolate that tower because it was on fire. You can't really restart a broken bulb like that. Potentially to flick another transformer and have to wait another 40 odd minutes. But it was
not as easy as screw one out and put another one.
Yeah, exactly. So all the chat since then over the weekend's been about the renovations and improvements that need to be made to the Gabba, and an extra power supply, your dedicated power supply and separate power supply for each light will be the design going forward. So
not the first time it's happened either, is what I've heard. So
right.
Yeah, biggest occasion, obviously.
Yeah, it's gone out a few times there, and the recent memory for us, I think, was the Super Bowl, Ravens 49ers.
That's getting on now.
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah, Ray Lewis played in that game. So
Thereabouts. Yeah. But the effect of the lights turning off in that game was a huge momentum shift.
It was as well. Yeah, same thing. It's just like, how do you, again, park yourselves and then have to get the momentum going and get the boosts and play the final of the game. But the AFL, I think, handled it pretty well. They were pretty adamant that the game had to finish, even though they had a 40-point lead. Just for semantics, they didn't want to spread any possibility of they could have come back and won, and which we saw they almost did. They have the full allotment that they can have the chance, and then no doubts that who was the winner out of that game.
That's very true.
Righto.
Should we move on?
Let's jump over to the subcontinent. The biggest T20 tournament that comes around annually is about to kick off. We will preview each team. I've written them, as I always do, in alphabetical order. It works well for my OCD brain.
By location?
Yes, by location. And luckily there's no there's no Super Kings. They all have a city or state attached to them.
Damn it. I've been really wanting to find new names of places that are just... out there.
Anyways, we'll start with the Super Kings from Chennai. They finished 9th last year, pretty underwhelming, only won 4 games. However, they spent big on Ben Stokes. We've seen how good he's been in captaining the English team through the red ball format. It's a strong sort of Kiwi flavour about the Super Kings. Stephen Fleming is their coach. They've got Devon Conway, Mitch Santner, Cole Jamieson. Obviously, all 3 of them won't play at the same time. Given the IPL's rules for having 4 international players in each team only, that will be a big focus of the upcoming preview for anyone that's sort of just getting into the IPL or is maybe a bit more of a casual IPL fan. Each team has a plethora of internationals that they can choose from. However, you can only start 4, so it makes the way that you choose a team on the night. It puts some demands on that, and it's kind of one of the fun talking points, really. We see a lot of players coming back. The ageless MS Dhoni is going to skipper them again at the age of 41. Jadu, he's pretty good given what we've seen this summer.
I think at 41, if you're still getting $1.4 million, it's good reason.
That's US too. Yeah. All these prices that we'll talk about, they are US dollars. So you can add a little bit of mayo if you're listening down here in Australia. Unfortunately for our Indian listeners, I haven't got the crores and the lakhs there. I've already done the calculations to bring them over to currencies that sort of make sense to us. So apologies, you'll have to do the inverse. Their top order looks pretty good. It looks like Devon Conway might get a gig. Ruturaj Gaikwad, Ambati Rayudu, and then that man Ben Stokes, nearly a $2 million US man. And then the middle order is fucking hot as well. Shivam Dubey, Moeen Ali, MS Dhoni we've spoke about, Jadu. And then the big man to talk about was Deepak Chahar, who was injured for most of the IPL last year. He's raking in about 1.7 mil US. But the bottom 2 in Chowdhury and Thikshana, the spinner from Sri Lanka, not on big money. It's going to be interesting to see what happens because Cole Jamieson is injured for the foreseeable future. They do have the likes of Ajinkya Rahane, Dwayne Pretorius, and others there. For each of these teams, I've put a strength and a weakness. I think the strength, we've spoken about that batting depth, and it's kind of similar to the Indian Test team, when you've got the likes of Jadu
Jadu,
or someone like Moeen Ali, that might bat as low as 7.
Yep,
it's pretty scary
just keep batting deep.
For other teams. Look, they were disappointing last year. 9th, there was a few sort of strange results last year with them and Mumbai playing pretty poorly.
Yeah.
I think on paper they don't look too bad. I think depth could be a little bit of an issue if they do have a few injuries.
What's their pace like? I think that's the only question I kind of had on this.
Yeah, well, with Jamieson out, it's going to really depend on Deepak Chahar. And how he goes
back as well.
Coming back this year. Their spin options are pretty good with Jadeja and Thikshana. Chowdhury, he had to take the brunt of it last year when Chahar was
bowl his mids.
And Stokes, that's a good point there. That's a good point. Stokes might be able to fill in and bowl your 3-4 overs here or there.
He's not Jamieson. It's kind of what I was getting at. They might lack that type of quick bowler.
I think it's a good point. With Jamieson being injured, I'm not sure how long he will be injured for, and that'll be a common theme for these previews. Is there's a lot of injuries going into the tournament. They probably do lack that genuine, scary kind of quick.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a bottom 2 team. I think they played a little bit unders, a little bit disappointing last year.
Well, I think that's with the IPL, it's very hard to separate and say these guys are going to be bad because the amount of teams and the amount of talent that they can bring in, they're talented across the board. It just depends on who wins when they show up and play. So, Super Kings and the Indians just had a bad run of it last year. They can completely flip that script this year.
Dude, it's a good point because you look at, say, the EPL at the start of the year and you're like, oh, well, there's 3 teams that can win this.
Yes.
The IPL is the complete opposite. Like, it's the worst thing to do a prediction for because it's so up in the air. Cricket as a sport, especially in T20 format, is so up in the air. And then you've got teams that all buy players from an auction, there's a salary cap involved. It's very, very unpredictable. The spread of all these teams from the bookies is 6-1 to 12-1.
Yeah.
So everyone's sort of there or thereabouts.
Yes.
Wow.
We will be bold and we'll try and make a few predictions. I think the Super Kings will be better than they were last year. I think they miss out on the top 4.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to judge until I had a look at some of the other ones. We have personal investment in the Capitals doing well.
Yep.
And we'll get to them in a second. I think looking at that list, especially with the likes of Dadu and Ben Stokes in it, that they should compete on a regular basis.
So Kyle Jamieson is gone for the entire season.
Yeah,
Wow.
seems like he's
Not part of
pulled
it.
himself out of the entire IPL.
That's pretty big. They bring in
that's their big
South
big
African
hole.
pacer Susana Magala. Haven't heard too much of him, so that really puts the pressure on Chaha and Chowdhury and whoever comes in to replace Kyle Jamieson. Well, probably Chowdhury is the like for like. It's going to be hard without some depth through their quicks.
Yep.
You do look at that middle order and you think, well, if we've got to go out there and chase 220, maybe they can do it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Just put up bulk runs and
You prefer not
don't
to.
worry about it.
You prefer to defend. but-
There's a few teams that we'll look at where it's like, oh, wow, their batting stocks are unreal, but it's a bit so-so on the bowlers. Talking about that team that we do have personal investment in, we've all become Delhi Capitals fans on the podcast over the last couple of years. Very privileged to talk with the Delhi Capitals and their media team, hoping to do that again this IPL. And the biggest story really is their skipper, their most expensive player, if he were to play, Rishabh Pant, having that horrible car accident a few months ago. Still recovering. He won't play a single game. It's line through Rishabh. By all reports, recovering okay. But it was a nasty car accident that he had. So that beckons the question, who's going to get the gloves? They've got Phil Salt, but the international aspect of the game, they'll have to drop one of the current internationals in their best 4 to get Salty in there. I think Sarfaraz Khan might get the nod moving forward. He's currently got a finger injury. How deep they go with keepers, I've got no idea. It's going to be interesting to see how they actually line up next weekend. But obviously it's a gaping hole left by Rishabh Pant. If Pant was healthy, and our sort of personal bias aside, I actually think they might be the best team in the comp.
Yeah. Well, we've seen what Mitch Marsh did recently against the Indians, winning the series for us in the one-day game. So he looks like he's in a bit of form. David Warner maybe struggling a little bit, but it looks like great. That side, Delhi Capitals, I think, we even said the same last year. They've got a good, well-rounded side with a lot of good top order and quicks and, Tell, etc. can turn the ball, but same point. They'll be competitive. It's just whether they can take that leap to the next one.
Well-rounded is a good sort of
one caveat on that is
evaluate them.
Bison had a pretty terrible IPL last year, didn't he?
He didn't play the first bit, and then
Got COVID, didn't he?
Yeah, had COVID. I don't think it was terrible. Can you get up some Delhi Caps numbers from last year?
I think he was, he didn't miss the first couple of games. Then was a slow kind of starter, and Delhi Capitals by that point were, batting at 500 and finished the season that way. So, and he was on big money, so I think that was probably more the reasoning there. But hopefully, that season's in behind him in the rearview mirror, and he'll come out and continue the elite form that he's had. Concerning the one-day World Cup's coming up too.
But we've seen how good Mitch Marsh, the Bison, can be on his day. He didn't break any records last year, but he still had 251 runs through his 8 games, and staying healthy is gonna be a big sort of caveat next to his name. Davey Warner had a great comeback year for Delhi last year, scoring 432 runs, averaging 48. But a lot has been spoken about his form for Australia recently. We've spoken about it on this podcast. He may have in the back of his mind as well, am I going to be opening in the Ashes?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because he batted 5th, didn't he, in that one day?
4th, 4th. I was trying to remember the last time that I saw David bat in the middle order. I don't think it's happened. I can't remember it happening.
I don't think it's happened because he came from T20 as a guy that could hit quickly. So I was like, hey, let's put him in the opener and see if he can see off that new ball and hit it around when it's hard. I can't say I've ever seen Davey Warner bat anywhere else but about opening. So it was weird to see that he'd come back. He's come back from his fractured thumb,
elbow. I think
elbow. Yeah. That's right. There's so many fingers in the other boys. I couldn't remember which one.
10, some might say.
Coming back from the elbow and then getting just thrown in there fifth, and then he scored 30.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but I think that was kind of the exception to the rule. I think Davey Warner will be opening with Prithvi Shaw.
In this? Yeah, definitely.
And I think his IPL form is, you've got to pay more attention to the way that he's played in the IPL. Obviously, before coming back to Delhi, a lot was spoken about that year at Sunrisers in 2021.
More politics than...
It was politics. It was lacklustre, really, each time he was out there. But one of the most prolific run scorers in IPL history. And obviously, as Aussies and Delhi Capitals fans, we're pretty invested in the ball going out there and scoring some runs.
Yeah, go.
Let's look.
He's only batted 3 times outside of the top 2 in his entire Test career.
And that's why we've got the fastest research man when he's on his game in the Southern Hemisphere.
Can you give us a rundown of those 3?
Oh, geez. He batted 6 back in 2013 and batted third 2013-2016 for 2 matches in that span. In that cricket. Test cricket.
So I remember that.
He scored, 39 runs in those tests. So in those 3 tests, so pretty unrememberable tests for him, I suppose.
I don't know if that's a word.
Unrememberable? It is now.
Forgettable. As per this correlation between David Warner's middle order batting in Test cricket to the way that he will play in this IPL, I think he opens, and it's going to be interesting though. How does he perform given sort of the external pressure outside of the IPL? In terms of the Australian media and his future.
I feel like it'll be a big relief. It's not the Australian media that's coming after him, and he's loved there at Delhi. So I think
he's a big deal there.
Yeah, so I think it'll be more weight off his shoulders and maybe just play his natural game, have fun with it, and enjoy himself.
He's all right batting at 4th in T20.
What's his record there, Jimmy?
Why are we talking about this?
I don't know.
He's bringing it up.
What is it?
We'll move on.
What's the average of?
He averaged
40.
You can't blue balls like that, Jimmy.
It wasn't 40. It was better than. It was 33. Was his highest, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
The middle order. Speaking of the middle order, if there's any sort of question marks around this Delhi Capitals team, it might be this middle order. They did bring in Manish Pandey to try and bolster that a little bit. It looks like it might be Lalit Yadav and Sarfaraz Khan might get the gloves. And then the bowlers, I think a really good, well-rounded bowling unit. Akshar Patel, we've seen how pesky he can be as Australian fans. He was actually their 6th highest run scorer in the last tournament. He only got out 4 times. He averaged 45 with the stick. He's going to bat probably 6 or 7, and then gives you that spinning option. And then Anik Nortje, probably the only South African who came down under and really sort of instilled a little bit of fear in the Aussies in the past summer. And then Kuldeep Yadav, the left arm Chinaman. We can say it. He'll pick himself, and then how does the rest of the team line up? I think the Fizz Mustafizur Rahman from Bangladesh gets a gig, but that means it will limit what they can do in terms of internationals above him. He's very handy with the ball. Can you click on their bowling stats from last year, if you wouldn't mind, Max?
Well, I think Warner, Marsh, and Nortje were all players. So if he's the 4th, then that's kind of, it might limit their options a little bit.
Well, it comes back to the keeper as well. Like, will they need to use that on Phil Salt? They've got Riley Rosu and Lungi Ngidi as well for South Africans. So that may sort of play into the Fizz getting a gig. He played half of their games last year. Nortje also limited last year, but that was through injury and not lack of selection. And Kuldeep Yadav, he's up there with one of the best spinners in the Indian Premier League. He had 21 poles, averaging 19 last year. I think it's a pretty well-rounded team.
Yeah, I agree.
Prediction-wise, obviously, we're Delhi Capitals fans. I've got them top 2. That might be a little bit bullish, but if you wanted to hear my honest opinion, I think if they miss the top 4, it'd be a real disappointment.
Yeah, like they did last year. I think they should be in the 4 playing finals.
Let's go to last year's winners in the Gujarat Titans. First year, don't care, go out and win the whole thing. They won 10 games in the regular season and then brought the whole thing home. They do bring in Kane Williamson and the Irishman, Josh Little. It's interesting bringing in such a big name such as Kane Williamson. I don't know if he will actually be in their best 4 internationals.
I think he's more depth. I don't think he's not that well known as a T20 hitter.
He's pretty he's much like Smudge. When it comes to T20, can really go out there and make a...
He's an elite stick, so you'd
make a lot of runs, but he's probably not going to go out there and strike at 160 like a lot of these guys do. The way that I've sort of lined up this likely 11 is having Kane Williamson in there. I think Matt Wade played a pretty good role for Gujarat last year. I think he has to open the batting with Shubman Gill, and then I've got Kane Williamson. David Miller, one of the most destructive sticks in the IPL, followed by our boy Hardik Pandya, who'll captain the team, Rahul Tewatia, and then into I think, sort of mediocre bowling lineup outside of Rashid Khan. Mo Shami is going to have to sort of carry these quicks. Yash Dayal does a bit, but that sort of rolls us into the strengths and weaknesses. I don't know if that's the best bowling lineup getting around in the IPL. Strength-wise, you look at that middle order.
Well, I think they've
1 through 6, really.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think their bowling, they've put all their cookies in one basket here and gone with Rashid Khan as, he's going to have to do a lot of work for them, how well he does is probably how well this team will do.
And you can do that. Like you see perennially throughout whichever competition he's in. Rashid Khan, he's put the strikers on his back for years. He was 8th last year in wickets.
Sammy there was 6th.
But look at his economy. So he's 8th for wickets. Okay, cool. Look at his economy, 6.59. Everyone above him is 8s, 7s, or 7, 8, 9. People cannot hit him out of the attack ever. And it doesn't matter if it's in India, it doesn't matter if it's at Adelaide Oval. You give him the ball, he's going to go bowl 4 overs and go for 25, and that's 4 overs where you say, okay, maybe the rest of our bowling attack, which isn't loaded with these super scary name-based quicks, maybe outside of Mo Shami, he literally can win you games as a leg spinner in T20 cricket.
I agree.
Would like to see Josh Little get a gig. They paid a bit of money for him. The most high-profile Irishman to ever play in the IPL. We'll talk about this series in a second because there's a team with a few Bangladeshis. But Bangladesh and Ireland, they scheduled a series right at the start of the IPL. You'd think as a Bangladeshi or an Irishman, if you're going to go get some bickies playing in the IPL, you'd probably prefer to do that. But anyways, we'll talk about that in a second. I think they'll back up again well from last year. I think legitimate top 2 chance. The bookies have got them as the shortest price at 6-1. I think much like Delhi and probably even more so on paper would be highly disappointed from missing the top 4.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with depth, middle order, hitting, and of course the Khan.
Kolkata Knight Riders finished 7th last year. They won 6 games, lost 8. They've probably been the team that's gone under the biggest reshuffle. It wasn't a super auction this time round, so you remember back to the auction before this year, there was a lot of reshuffling, whereas most of the teams line up reasonably similarly to last year. Kolkata probably the exception to the rule. A lot's going to sort of depend on Shreyas Iyer. Monks, if you wouldn't mind searching for the latest news on him. He's got a back injury. It looks like Nitish Rana will most likely get the nod for the skipping role. It may be for a good chunk of the IPL. They do bring in the Lord have mercy, Lord Shardul Thakur. He comes over from the Delhi Caps. He is an elite all-rounder. Not the best bowler in the IPL, but can get through his 4 overs and can go out and score bulk runs batting 7 or 8. Talking of Bangladeshi, so they do have Shakib Al Hassan and Liton Das. How they fit into this team, probably only one of them will get in as their best 4 internationals. Shakib, he's one of the most controversial figures in world cricket. Had that lengthy layoff with match fixing and the rest of it, and definitely not one to mince his words. And like I spoke about that Ireland series, they may miss a few games through that. From an Aussie perspective, no Pat Cummins this IPL with the passing of his mother, and Aaron Finch retiring from international T20 cricket. And then Lockie Ferguson, he returns after winning the comp with the Titans last year, also injured. So a lot of sort of reshuffling over there at the Knight Riders. Sam Billings was there last season. He's going to be focusing on red ball. So there's a lot of sort of question marks around who will get the keeping nod. I think it will be Narayan Jagadeesan in terms of saving your internationals. I think he'll get the nod. I don't know too much about him. Leighton Das obviously is the Bangladeshi keeper and plays pretty well for Bangladesh. I think he may miss out for Jagadeesan. Depending on the availability of Shreyas Iyer. Monks, have you got anything on that?
Yeah, a couple reports. One said that he may miss at least the first half. Another one saying that he's set to sit out the whole season. I suppose obviously his main concern is being able to participate in the World Test Championship. Yeah. So I think it, by all accounts, sounds like he's not electing to have surgery just yet, probably because of that. But yeah, I suppose it's just going to be a developing story and a probably massive headline throughout the IPL.
Can you check Lockie Ferguson's hammy for me? Because perhaps as you read through this, if for all the teams we've looked at so far, this is the one that's got the most question marks or concerns leading into it. Yes, they've got the big Dre Rush, as their kind of main hitter, but outside of that, then you start thinking about well, who else is going to score them runs if Iyer's out hurt as well? And the pace attack looks good, but again, if Ferguson's going to miss a bunch of time too, that just causes worry. Causes worry for me here. And if I was going to look at any team so far that we've looked at this and go, oh yeah, they're probably going to be no good, it would be these guys.
Yeah, I'm concerned. That said, we've spoken about the unpredictable nature of cricket. Watch us go out there and bag them, and they go and do well.
Win the comp, yeah.
It's done. It's going to be a big prove it moment for Nitish Rana, who may get the captaincy, but also Venki Iyer, Jagadeesan. Someone at the top of the order has to step up when Shreyas isn't there and score runs. I do like that middle order. Dre Russ, he's on $1.5 million US. Whether it be Shakib that comes in there, the Lord Shardul, and then maybe one of the best economy off spinners in the IPL in Sunil Nareen. I don't mind that middle order whatsoever. We will talk a lot about quicks and their availability, and then the backup. Tim Southey, not a bad replacement for Lockie Ferguson. Doesn't hit the same clicks as what Lockie Ferguson does. But yeah, I agree. I do look at that list and I start having a few concerns. Given the injuries, given the the reshuffling, I've got them bottom 2 this year.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a fair assessment on what we know now currently this week. Did you get an answer on Ferguson down the end there?
He's not starting. I think they're still assessing to work out.
And it's hamstring.
If or when.
Did I say
hamstring.
So you wouldn't think he'd miss the whole tournament from a hamstring. grade,
hammies
grade dependent.
in tall fellas that run in and bowl quick. Not something you really want them to have.
No.
Can be problematic.
Would prefer it to say back stress fracture or there's worse things, silver linings, etc.
Yeah, pinky finger.
This one also says that Al Hassan and Das will both be playing in that Bangladesh Island series.
When does that finish? Is there a finish date on that?
Starts tomorrow, finishes on the 31st of March. IPL
so it
starts
starts on the
31st of
first.
March.
So they'll miss the first
They
game,
might
maybe
miss the
two.
first game, yeah.
Okay, that's not too bad.
When is their first game? Because there's one or two games on the 1st on April Fools, and then there.
I think that's our time. I think the first one starts Friday the 31st.
Okay.
I believe. Yeah.
Yep, first game Friday 31st.
Is Gujarat and Chennai.
So when's their first game? Was my question.
It'll be next weekend.
Who are we talking about again?
Night Riders.
Night Riders.
It's the next day. It's
next day,
Saturday.
yeah.
It's Saturday.
So potentially they could make it, but private jet.
Yeah, I think they'll miss one or two. But
Parachute in.
it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Let's look at the other new franchise from last year, the Lucknow Super Giants. Again, sort of exceeded expectation last year, finishing 4th. Spent big on bringing in Nicholas Pooran, 27-year-old Trinidadian. That he will bolster their batting stocks. A few West Indians sort of about this. We've got the West Indian little singlet up there, but Jason Holder, he goes to Rajasthan. Looking at them, very strong at the top. KL Rahul, Quinton de Kock, Deepak Hooda, Nicholas Pooran, our boy, the Stoin, the Greek freak, and then Krunal Pandya. That top to middle order looks very, very good. Bowling stocks, maybe not as strong, but also no slouches in Badoni, Bishnoi, Avesh Khan, Moshin Khan, and they bring in Mark Wood. I think depth-wise, their sticks are pretty good. Their top order is elite. It's a lot of pressure for Ravi Bishnoi. He's 22. He's not a slouch, but he's going to have to be their go-to spinner. If I had to pick a weakness, it might be their spinning depth.
Yeah. Who were the 4 internationals you think at De Kock, Poirier, Stein and Wood?
Yes. Yeah. So and I actually because a lot of them are kind of like who's their best 4 internationals. Yeah. I feel like with Lucknow, it's probably those 4 in Quinton, in Pooran, in Stoinis and Mark Wood. I think they're the clear cut best 4.
Sams be your 5th?
Yeah, Dan Sams might be there.
Sorry, not Smith. Sams.
Sam Smith.
Yeah.
He's been in the news recently for ones and zeros chats. I also think their Indian depth is quite good. Like you look at Krishnapa Gautam, Amit Mishra. I think depth wise, it's a pretty good team. I don't think they're quite on that level as a Gujarat or a Delhi Capitals, but I think they'll definitely be there or thereabouts for the top 4.
Yeah, I just that weakness you point out there of spin in India, trying to keep run rates low, is a risky strategy. Is the way I think of that. So I'd be maybe a little bit concerned for them, but they're going to have these young fellas have to stand up and do a job for them.
I'd love to see a big breakout tournament for the Stoin with bat and ball. He's back bowling, opening the bowling for the Aussies in. Our bookies have them at 8-1. I think they push for that top 4. I'm not going nuts on the table. I'm going to be a real fence sitter and think they'll be right around that 4th, 5th, 6th.
Yep.
That's fair. I think that point we made, if those spinners guys like Stein that can play a bit overs, then they're a top 4. But if not, then they can slide out.
Let's talk about possibly the biggest name in the IPL in terms of franchises. Yeah. The Mumbai Indians. Disappointment is an understatement. Last year, they only won 4 games. They came dead last. It's going to be a rebuild year in terms of Jasprit Bumrah being unavailable, their marquee quick, and also Jai Richardson, the Aussie, to miss a bit of time. They spent big on Cameron Green. I think we shouted him a beer.
Yes, we did.
going out there and being the highest paid Aussie in the IPL this series. That's a lot of pressure for a young man who is reasonably unproven in T20 cricket as a whole, let alone in the IPL, to go out there and command, over $2 million US. That top order is so. I think he's probably in their best 4 internationals. And Tim David, who's going to get $1 million US to go out there and score some quick runs in their middle. Losing Bumrah, of course, it's pretty hard to replace him. Regardless of it being white or red ball. They do have Jofra Archer. He's looking fit. He's looking healthy. I think I sent a picture to you boys. He's looking hot. Some might say looking hot. The question will be, is the rest of their bowling depth there? They don't have a big name spinner. I think Piyush Chawla, I think that's how you say it. He's a leg spinner. He's going to have to carry the load in terms of the spin stocks. I look at this team and it looks so lopsided. It looks like, the seesaw, one of the seesaws is fucking 2 foot in the ground. It's so heavy. It's so stacked. And then the other bit of the seesaw, it's light outside of Jofra Archer. Obviously, losing Bumrah sucks, but I can't see with this inexperienced bowling lineup, these guys going far. Our bookies have them equal second. Caveat, I think they've got 3 or 4 on about $7, but I don't see the Mumbai Indians making the top 4 this IPL. Jason Behrendorff is in this list, so it'd be interesting to see. Yeah. Maybe Baby AB misses out and Behrendorff comes in, gives you a left arm quick. He'd complement Archer pretty well there.
Yeah, a lot of success for his team in the Big Bash.
Well, you need to think about the Scorchers and WA and how well they've gone.
Yeah, some proven commodities there with Richardson as well. But again, with your internationals, very hard to have that lineup. But
it's a fun game, isn't it? A lot of it comes down to picking who the best 4 internationals is. You can see why they do it, and how good, Indian white ball cricket has, how much they've progressed really since the inception of the IPL, and being quite stringent with rules like this. I agree. I just think whether or not it is Behrendorff and Archer or Ashad Khan and Archer, whoever gets the go, I just don't know if they've got the bowling stocks there to support such a stellar top order there.
Like we were saying before, it's one of those teams where you just have to rely on making bulk runs and just game manage the fielding bowling side
100%,
aspect of it.
100%. They might back themselves to just go, oh well, who gives a fuck if it's just Jofra and a bunch of young Indians, on fuck all money. If we've got the likes of Rohit and Ishan Kishan and Cam Green and Sky at the top of the order, come chase 240. Fuck yeah.
Well, I think that could be their game plan. We've got to score big with the guys there. If they get a run on them early, then they're going to be a team, I think, that struggles once you get through that top order. But
with that sort of team, would you rather be batting first or second?
Probably depends on the night and the situation.
What did we say? I think chasing's been the preference.
Definitely when they moved to the Emirates in the COVID years, for some reason, I'm not sure if it was the heat or whatever.
Actually, didn't we see last year was most dominant in the first half of the season, and then actually it switched in for the back half of the season, where putting out a big score initially was easier to defend.
I don't know if we can do like for like from last year, because last year it was still a bit bubbly in terms of there was only sort of 3 or 4 grounds that they played, whereas this year it's full back open. Every team has their home games in their hometown, and the past few tournaments we take with a grain of salt, I suppose, in the way that we interpret those stats.
Yeah, they've got 12 arenas that they're going to be playing at. Yeah,
Mumbai. The top end is unreal. The bottom end, maybe not household names, especially for us down under. It'll be interesting to see how they go. I've got them outside the top 4. Let's talk about the Punjab Kings. Their biggest news is Mayank Agarwal, who goes to Sunrisers Hyderabad, was their skipper last year. That means Shikhar Dhawan will be the skipper this year. And poor Johnny Bairstow, he's still no good after breaking his leg playing golf. I don't know how you break your leg playing golf. Maybe you play a really bad shot and kick the shit out of the tee box or something. I'm not sure. Maybe. But he's still no good. It does open the doors for a few Aussies, whether or not Matt Short becomes his direct replacement. We saw how good he was in the Big Bash this year. Or maybe Nathan Ellis might get a bowling gig, given that's one international that won't be playing for him. Anil Kumble is their coach. Again, very strong top order, bolstered by Shikhar Dhawan. Shahrukh Khan, it's going to be a bit of a prove it year. He's on $1 million US. Didn't really play that well last tournament. He's got a lot to prove. But then you've got essentially two of the three best English players in the game in Liam Livingston and Sam Curran in that middle order. I think they'll provide a bunch of runs and keep it reasonably tidy with the ball. Kasego Rabada comes across for about $1 million. Rahul Chahar has been quite good with the ball. Arshdeep Singh also quite good with the ball. Great name. Gonna be interesting to see how they go. Given, I think again, not a whole lot of parity in terms of that top order compared to the bottom order. They also there's a big question mark around the amount of money that they left unspent. I think they left something like $10 million not spent in the auction. I don't know if they were just waiting for their man and didn't quite get him. I don't see these guys being a top 4 team. Our bookies have them at 9-1.
Just reading up here, so it does look like Matty Short has been named replacement for Bairstow.
It's not a bad.
So. Good on him. Let's go.
Yeah, great for him.
He's played so well in the Big Bash in the last 2 seasons. Probably a little bit unfamiliar for internationals, given he hasn't played for Australia just yet. So it's a big opportunity for him to go out there and score some runs.
It's one of those guys that's had so many good players playing in front of him at the top of the order. It's very hard to get an opening gig in the Australian squad, but he's definitely been playing very, very well. And him and Matthew Wade kind of combined for a very dominant team down there at the Hurricanes. Yeah. So, I can definitely see him coming out and having a real good crack for them. So, maybe not Johnny Bairstow levels, but he's going to probably cover that 80%, I'd say.
Let's talk about the Rajasthan Royals. I didn't get a good roll on my R there, but they did finish second, the boys in pink, last year. The big sort of talking point for them is the injury to Prasidh Krishna. There's a few teams that are missing essentially their front line quick. If it's an Indian quick, it hurts even more. Yeah. Because
forces you to have more internationals in you.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of your sticks.
Exactly right. They do have a very handy Indian stick in the name of Yashasvi Jaiswal. He's 21-year-old lefty. He, I believe, is the youngest player ever to score a double ton in List A cricket, so domestic one-dayers. Pretty freakish achievement, let alone at the ripe age of 21. And last year it was the Joss Butler show. He finished with 863 runs. That was over 240 more than KL Rahul in second. He single-handedly won this team games and was the main reason that they played so well. He's $1.2 million US. He's an absolute steal for that price. Yeah. The top order isn't too bad. We just spoke about the young fella Jaiswal. I think he probably gets a gig. They do have Devdutt Padikkal, depending on the way their internationals line up. Jaiswal might actually push him out of the best 11. Sanju Samson is the skipper. Shimron Hetmeyer, big heady. The big West Indian will come into that middle order, which also features Jason Holder and Ryan Parag. And then I think the best spinning combination in the IPL with Ravi Ashwin and Yuzi Chahal. Krishna will be out, most likely Navdeep Saini and maybe Obed McCoy, depending on internationals, will come in. And they got Trent Bolt in there on $1 million. He'll be a staple for sure.
Yeah, they got some interesting internationals there. Like, you can't get Joe Root in the team. And
I don't think outside of big injuries, Joe Root will be in that team.
Yeah. And, Adam
Zampa.
Zampa's the same. It's very unlikely you're going to have the Australian spinner come in and take a job from one of the locals in these conditions. So then again, he did a pretty good job the other night. So
he's an excellent spinner. He might be the best spinner in the IPL that's not going to get regular games.
Yeah. But he's definitely good depth there if they do want to change up their internationals at all.
My only concern around this team is if Butler doesn't fire, who's their next best up? Monks, if you wouldn't mind going back to 2022 and just scrolling down, who's the next Rajasthan Royal to feature in that list? Sanju Samson.
Yeah.
Sanju Samson wasn't bad, although you look at the games, he played 17, he made 458, he averaged 28. It's
half of what Butler did.
Exactly. And then outside of the both of them, Padikal probably a little bit lackluster. Hetty needs to step up. He was a bit of a finisher last year and didn't get out a whole lot. That's probably my only concern is if Joss doesn't make runs, how do these guys go? Having said that, I still think they're a top 4 team. Our bookies have them at about 7-1. I'd be surprised if these guys missed out. Royal Challengers Bangalore, one of the big clubs over there in the IPL. They finished 3rd last year, perennially good, but not a lot of trophies to their names. Will Jacks was a big signing for them, although he will miss I think the entire tournament. So unfortunate for the young Englishman there. This top order is very interesting to talk about. Some of the biggest names to ever play white ball cricket.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this in the past. These three, not just going into this season, but last season, the season before, like they've been the big 3 for this team, to use a basketball reference there, and they kind of just haven't been able to put it all together as a team and actually win a comp in that. But when you start talking about Faf, Coley, and Maxwell, like you've got some of the best hitters out there, and then they just, I guess, need a team around them to help them finish off, and maybe they've got it now.
I think their bowling is the best that it's ever been. Hazelwood really stepped up last year, was the best Australian quick in the IPL. Hasaranga is one of the best spinners getting around. Mo Siraj and Harshal Patel on home soil, they're going to be good. I like what RCB is doing here. My concern is the ageing nature of that big 3 in Faf, Virat and Maxi. Virat, we speak about it all the time on this podcast, how he's been in sort of a form slump of late. Can he bounce back and find that old Virat form? Faf was pretty good last year. Can he back that up? I think he's 38 this year. And
7th.
And Maxi.
Scroll, where did Maxi end up? I think, did Maxi miss the start of the... I felt like he missed a bunch of games last year.
Might have.
He did. He's coming back from that broken leg as well.
Yeah.
This
time
round.
13.
Yeah, so, the unders for him.
So he's going to have the old proverbial monkey on the back. You look at name value, and they're right up there with some of the best.
On paper, yeah, definitely.
I do have a concern around their lack of Indian depth as well. So you look at the guys that may come into this team. Finn Allen, we saw what he can do in the T20 World Cup when he destroyed the Aussie opening attack. Michael Bracewell, they're both Kiwis. They've got Topley and David Willey, who are both Poms.
Yep.
It's really important to have Indian depth in the IPL, and maybe that's something that they lack a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that.
Having said that, I don't see them as a bottom tier side by any means. I just don't know if they're a top tier side. I think they'll be pushing that top 4. I think much in the same vein as I had luck now. Not really wanting to put the nuts on the table and say for certain that they'll be a top 4 side. I think they'll be sort of there or thereabouts.
Yeah, they need those big 3 to fire and for their bowling to keep them in games.
The last team that we need to talk about is Sunrisers. Hyderabad finished 8th last year. Brian Lara comes in to replace Aussie Tom Moody as the coach. Mayank Agarwal is the big signing, comes in to replace Kane Williamson, who goes to Gujarat. And the big talking point is the hottest name in cricket right now, the best test batsman since Don Bradman as it stands, Harry Brook. He's coming in there. He's going to be the youngest starter in this team Sundar's quite young. He'll be one of the younger, but he's going to be getting paid twice as much as anyone else in that team. It's a lot of pressure for the young bloke. How does he handle it?
Yeah, definitely. And just looking down that list, and I think you've got the note there that probably outside of Brook, they kind of lack the true superstars or a group of superstars like we talked about. A lot of the other teams that we have, usually it's around their internationals as well. They'll have three guys or 2 or 3 guys that you're like, hey, they're their leaders, they're their superstars they've brought in to be the face of franchise. But you've got Harry Brook, who to be his first IPL, and outside of that, Washington Sundar's probably the most well known I can see in that list.
Outside of Agarwal,
Rahul
Tripathi as well makes a bit of money, and the skipper Aidan Markram. But I agree 100%. It's not like a team that's really headlined by a Rohit Sharma or a KL Rahul or a Virat Kohli in terms of really proven IPL stalwarts.
Yeah, Jansen's an interesting one for them, the big fella. But I don't know. I think for them, they're well-rounded. They could be a solid team, and maybe that's where they differ from the others. Where the others, like we've talked about, have the seesaw, where they might be heavily one side or the other, then really need to rely on those guys to win games. Whereas maybe that's the difference here because Sunrisers, they're a bit more even across the field, and they have to play more of a team cricket style, and where everyone will just do their job, and that might win them enough games to potentially sneak into the 4. But that's where I feel they are. They'd be a team that either sneaks in or towards the bottom there, and I think you've got them as bottom 2.
It's hard because, like you say, there's no one in that starting 11 who's a bad cricketer. Yeah, but maybe they do lack that real superstar, and time will tell. Can Harry Brook just go out there in his?
If he turns up every game, it doesn't matter. So.
And look, the way that he's been playing, it wouldn't really surprise me if Harry Brook goes out there and takes this tournament by the scruff of the neck. Realistically, I just don't see them being a top 4 side. I do have them towards the bottom. Another interesting point in terms of their balance of internationals, they've got Adil Rashid, one of the best white ball bowlers in the world. Can he bust into their best 4 internationals? It probably would be for Marco Jansen, given their other keeper would be Henrik Klaasen for Glenn Phillips. So they don't really have an Indian keeper, I don't think. Yep. That wraps up the IPL chat. In summation, it's going to be a massive year for these guys who are on big money. Cam Green for the Aussies, he's the highest paid Aussie. He's not proven by any means when it comes to T20 cricket. How does he fare? How does Harry Brook go, the hottest man in international cricket at the moment? I'm looking forward to it, boys. It's at a shit time, for us. Most of the games are midnight, but it is the premier cricket tournament in the world, and it really fills in this nice void nicely until the World Test Championship and the Ashes come our winter.
Yep,
that's it.
Let's talk some rugby league. Round 4 has wrapped up. Thursday night, a cracking game to get the round underway. Parramatta 1-point winners over Penrith over there in CommBank Stadium. Para definitely been Penrith's daddy outside of grand finals last year. Yes.
Bring the table up, Jimmy.
Are we worried about Penrith? They've dropped games early to Brisbane and Parramatta, or do we just think long season, good hard fought game? Not too concerned just yet.
Not too concerned because of the score lines as well. Like if you just scroll down, what's their points differential? It's a difference of 4.
They've conceded 40 points in 3 games as well.
Yeah, and had only scored 44 of themselves. Only scored 40, themselves, and they've conceded 44 for a 4-point difference. Like they're not too far away, is the way I feel it. So they still got that good squad. They re-signed Yo, I think, for another 3 years today.
I did say that. Yeah.
I'm not too worried with Penrith currently. Long season. I think they'll come back and be right in the future. Yeah, so, I'm okay here.
I think it probably only highlights the fact that they might have taken a slight step back with all the players who left from last season.
Yeah,
but again, still very early on in the season.
Also got to remember, like most of their guys played the World Cup and then played the Club Challenge, so they've played a lot of football. So they may be a little bit slow to start the season, but I think they'll come Origin time they'll round into it and be up there and be playing good football. Well, I found interesting. I saw reports that Penrith fans were the ones that stayed after the game to sign stuff for the Para fans there. Whereas Parramatta had buggered off and hit the showers, so, which I thought was quite interesting. But anyway,
and a bit of credit to Para. Backs up against a wall. Had lost their first 3 games by a try or less. So, we're a bit of luck or a few calls away from winning a few of those early games. Hats off to them to open the account for the year. Boys, we've got to talk about Zach Hosking. Anyone that plays NRL Fantasy or Supercoach has to be aware of this bloke. Played all 83 minutes, so didn't go off. Had a meat pie, 55 tackles, 110 metres gained, was the best by a country mile.
Is he playing in Kickout's old spot?
Yeah, so it had been between him and Luke Garner, and I think Zach's probably put a good step forward in trying to cement that position. And also for the neutral viewer, unbelievable game with the 2-point field goal from Nathan Cleary to take the game to golden point, and then Para coming away victors in the end.
Yeah, and some news during the week. Mick Moses has confirmed he is re-signing with the Eels, so staying
money.
Put. And I think there's some rumours as well that Clint Gutterson's been told that they're looking at other fullbacks as well, so which is interesting.
Wow.
You sign one for big money and then you
something's got to give.
Yeah, money's going to come from elsewhere. Not everyone can have a sombrero. So. Melbourne Dick Wests?
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't say dicked. I think the Tigers were okay, but Storm down there at Amy Park, normally too good. Return of Cam Munster.
Back, yeah. Very different squad.
Olam is back and looking pretty strong. As soon as Pappy comes back, that's pretty much as good as they'll get. I still think, we've said it the first few weeks, I think Melbourne are a notch behind where they were.
Yep.
Understandable, given the exodus of forwards for them. 1 through 7, they're still fine. I think a lot is going to depend on the ability of Josh King to really bolster that forward pack moving forward, and young Alicia Katoa has been quite good. I don't see them as a top 4 side this year, given a lot of the other teams have improved so much.
Yeah, we'll give it a couple of weeks and then they'll unearth some gem. And
that's right. They'll be the next young Pappenhausen or Nico Hines or something.
Yeah, so they'll be right, I reckon, especially with Burnley there. Tigers on the other side, they're still struggling. Still more, reports of infighting over there, as you would. Bateman did play, though has an injury that they won't disclose what it is from this game. So I don't know. It seems like a bit of a shit show over there for the Tigers, and for all those teams down there on the bottom of the ladder are very thankful that the Tigers are playing as poorly as they are this season.
It's round 4, and they're the only team that hasn't won a game.
Yeah, we haven't even looked like close to winning a game. What's their difference, Muz? So I just scroll down. Like Sharkies...
minus 30.
Minus 30.
Oh, they haven't conceded as much as the Titans, but they're still minus 30.
The worst.
The Battle of Brisbane, 50,000 in there at Suncorp. The Bronx get the Dolphins.
Yeah. Our house.
Yeah, our house. There was a bit of our house chat getting thrown around.
Tony scored that last one to put him in front.
100 metres piece. He actually, he's a bit quicker than I thought. I didn't know he had that kind of
I think the big difference was Hammer was on the other side of the field. Couldn't close in that distance to cover him off. But Staggs running away from the wasn't a sucker, it was the other wing for the Finns running away from him to get that try. It was good viewing. I think again Reece Walsh at the back there for them has been electric, really a difference maker to kind of open up what the other backs can do, giving Cobbo plenty of opportunities, which is looking very, very good for them. This game was very good for the NRL. I think it was the third most viewed NRL game in 3 years on Fox Sports. So, had about 400 viewership there. And it was the most viewed television in Queensland with 1.3 mil watching as well. So, that's massive. Yeah. Massive for the NRL. It kind of shows that, that the second Brisbane team has been a roaring success. And the fact that they were competitive in this, came back from being down, took the lead late, and then ended up being close with that Stags try to win it, was a big difference for them. Huge out, though, Sean O'Sullivan with the torn pec in this one. He was really cementing himself in that team and that, running them around the park. So he's a big loss for them at 7. Kind of means I think Milford's got to play 7 now, and hopefully, I've forgotten the young fella's name, can come back and play
Katoa.
6 because he was hurt. Which I think really hurts them a little bit, but we'll see.
Have you got an update on Sean O'Sullivan? It's been a couple nights now. He probably should have had a scan.
Yeah, I think I've heard torn pec, season done.
If it's tendon off, then it's pretty much a season.
Full tendon rupture.
Yeah, that's the worst news possible.
12 to 16 weeks.
Might be okay for finals if they're there or thereabouts. That's so sad because he has struggled with injuries before in the past.
And cementing a first grade spot and really getting his opportunity with the Dolphins, and they've been playing really well on the back of his structures they were setting up for him. So, big loss.
Wishing Sean O'Sullivan a speedy recovery. You hate to see it. All right, into the Saturday games. The Cowboys get back in the winners list against the Gold Coast
Titans.
Queensland
Derby.
Yeah, that's right. 3rd and 4th best Queensland teams. Cowboys really needed a win here. We were starting to question, was last year an anomaly or are they actually a good football team? They definitely showed shades of it in this one.
Yeah. Nanai is still very, very good. Still scoring tries. They really needed to show well against the Gold Coast to kind of right that ship a little bit. So, I think maybe this is the start for them, but they've got a long way to go. And I just don't know about this Titans team. They can't bench Kieran just before half time to win games on a regular basis. I don't think that's going to work. So,
I think I said in the preview, outside of the Dolphins, I thought that the Titans would struggle from the Queensland teams this year. I think the start that they've shown is kind of reflective of that, maybe a little bit better. But the Cowboys, I think, took a step forward into being that team that they were last year. Shout out to Alofi Khan Pereira. We highlighted him at the start of the year as a bloke that can score a meat pie. I think for any punters out there, I think he has had 3 games in a row he's had the first try, which is pretty impressive for a rookie. He scored 2 in this one, had 182 metres gained, the Cowboys I think steadied the ship.
That's a second win.
Probably reeling after seeing how good the Hammer's been for the Dolphins this year so far. But definitely a good positive step forward. As you mentioned, Jeremiah Nanai is the best young edge back rower in the NRL.
Scores bulk tries.
Yep.
South get the 1-point win against Manly, 13-12 in a fiery encounter there on Saturday night. the big superstars in terms of Latrell and Tommy Turbo, possibly a little quiet in this one. Yeah. We spoke highly of these edge back rowers for both teams who are definitely putting their hand up for Origin in Hamoli Olakawatu and Keon Kalamatangi. Both were very, very good in this one. Manly started well and then just did not show up in the second half. And props have to be shown to young Lachlan Ilias, who's definitely taken a step forward this year.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about that in the preview, that he needed to cement himself as their long-term 7 and as leading that squad around, because they've got plenty of talent all over the park. But yeah, I think for Manly, DCE still in the peach to get that long intercept try to kind of keep giving them some points to keep him in.
He loves an intercept.
Yeah, he does. So you can kind of see that they were struggling a little bit for points, which is a bit rare for Manly considering who they've got in their back line. I think it's maybe a bit of a lackluster performance in there. It ended up being a bit more of a gritty game than I think they were expecting. There was something. What was the main thing out of this was the forward pass, which would have had the match sealing winner for Turbo to get Turbo over.
Well, it was earlier than match sealing, but I think understandably Manly fans could be pissed off about that. It didn't look forward to me.
Yeah, I saw a highlight of it before on the TV angle that you would have got. It looked fine. I think from reports it was was thrown at the 30, caught at the 32. But out of the hands, it was backwards. It looked backwards, and I guess that's what the rules dictate. But the umpy was there right in line. So
referee.
I know, I'm fucking it up on purpose.
That's what you've been doing all these times in AFL.
I knew this one. That's why I was fucking it up.
Technically, it's a touch judge.
Yes. No, it was the referee in this line. He was right in line with the pass because it was an infield. And he called it. Like in the replay, you can see him call it straight away. So I guess if you go off his angle, he was probably best placed to do it. And, he's called this one forward. But, watching at the TV angle, if you're a viewer at home, you'd probably be furious on that one, unfortunately.
Not just Manly fans. Half of Australia probably had Tommy Turbo in their multis for any time try scorer or in their Supercoach / fantasy team.
True. Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of contentious, the Warriors get a win 16-14 against the Bulldogs. That final try from Sean Johnson, I would have thought if you wanted to explain obstruction to someone that didn't know the rule,
I haven't seen this one.
may have alluded to
It'll
this.
be in the highlights on the NRL.com.
It didn't bode that well. Now, there could have been a little bit of karma argument. There was a try in the first half, which was disallowed. It looked like Viliami Kikau stripped the ball, and maybe there was a bit of,
football gods square up.
Yeah, but this one didn't look great, I didn't think.
Yeah, well, Jimmy will pull it up for us and we'll have a quick look at it. It was good to see the Fox, though. Getting the wheels turning.
He's so fast, dude.
He's so quick to get down there.
So we're looking here at the contact.
No Shepherd on that, but Fanua Blake comes through and takes
Marnie.
Marnie, yes. I think they might have gone. There was actually a similar-ish one in the Raiders game today. And they went with the same ruling that he's made a defensive decision to take the lead runner.
Nice.
I can see why they didn't call it, but also you didn't really give him an opportunity to make a tackle in this one.
Yeah. I think the argument was number 9 for the Dogs, even if he wasn't impeded, probably wasn't going to be able to make the tackle.
Which is
against Sean
it's
Johnson,
a sticky rule, isn't it?
You still got to allow him to make an attempt, but I guess Fanua Blake hasn't stopped in the line. He has run through it, which they'd ping you on. And I guess Marnie's kind of a little bit further back there. He does make contact with the lead runner, but I think Fanua Blake's done the right thing and gone right through. If he'd gone and stopped in the line, then yes, I would have called that more obstruction.
I can understand why Dogs fans are angry.
Yeah, I know. It's the greyest of grey areas in the rugby league, and they will change that ruling next week anyway. So it'll be different again next week. It'll be different again the week after that.
Nonetheless, neither of these teams win the comp this year, so let's keep it rolling.
Doesn't even matter.
Speaking of teams that won't win the comp this year, Newcastle get a 24-14 win up there at McDonald Jones Stadium against the Canberra Raiders. Knights actually go to 2-2. Raiders, if it wasn't for the West Tigers, I think would be last. Sean, did you catch much of this? What was your take?
I did. Raiders had plenty of opportunities and plenty of ball with no real scoring options. I think we had a bit of a chat on the way over here, and they can't buy a try at the moment. And I guess when you think of their potent outside backs for scoring are all on the sidelines at the moment, they are kind of struggling, I think. And they're probably surprised the Sharkies last week with no Nico Hines to get a win there. I think the Raiders had plenty of opportunities in this. They had plenty of chances to actually win this game and take this game away from the Knights. But they just, outside of throwing it to Jack and Jack Whiten and saying, make some magic happen, that was about all they had. And losing Fogarty, I guess, in the earlier in the day with his illness didn't help as well. Having Crawford's a solid replacement, but he's Frawley, sorry, yes. He's solid replacement, but he's not a guy that's going to start week in, week out for an NRL team.
Concerned about the Raiders?
No, I think they did this last year and then they went on the hot form at the back end of the season. So I'll wait until everyone's healthy and then I'll make a decision.
But it could be.
I suppose that's it.
Savage is out for 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah,
so
round 8, that's what they're saying. So, it is a long way. It's another 4 weeks before we get to that.
I am concerned. I'm not a Raiders fan, but looking at them, they trialled poorly. They haven't impressed by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, really didn't really buy anyone. Danny Levi broke another broken jaw last week. He's going to be out 8 weeks.
Luckily, Tom Starling is a handy.
Yeah, and they have Wolford as well as backups there, and that was what they ran with last year. But it kind of didn't work today. I think Wolford only played really the second half, the last 30. So they got a good forward pack. I just don't think they know where the points are coming from at the moment, is the way I feel. So we'll have to wait and hope some of those guys can get healthy.
It's a long season. We won't write home just yet.
Yeah.
Another team that a few blokes here might be concerned about, the St George Illawarra Dragons got well and truly pumped today.
Yeah, the Raiders aren't conceding 40 yet.
At home by the Cronulla Sharks. Back-to-back weeks conceding 40. It was a Nico Hines show after missing the first few weeks. Absolutely lit it up. Had 123 run meters.
I watched
played a hand in nearly all of their trials.
Yeah, I watched a fair bit of this, and you could see that Nico Hines was just taking his time to work himself into the game, get used to it again. The first 20 was pretty slow, and then you just see him starting to get back in it, get back used to the boys, and then flick that switch, and then he put them to the sword essentially in that second half. So
it was 8-12 at half time.
Yeah,
and that's a big Dragons problem, because that's a few weeks in a row where that last sort of 10-20 minutes has just been capitulation time.
Yeah, defensively let one in and then sort of switch off.
Yep.
Yeah. Those halftime chats. Maybe not working out too well.
Poor Hook can't be out there and make every tackle in the last 20 minutes.
I know. And it's going to be concerning because I got Dolphins next week. Concede another 40 in 3 weeks. 1-3 over the first month. We said he had a short leash, which the question is how short is that leash going to be? And if they do boot him, who's going to be interim then for the rest of the year, essentially? It's
Ice-T's coming in.
Yeah.
Shout out to Matty John's show.
Yeah, it's grave concerns for the Dragons. I can't think of any of the other squads at the moment that have been conceding that big of score lines back to back.
Thank God for the West Tigers. Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Righto, boys, that'll wrap up the first 4 rounds of the NRL. Definitely a few surprise packets with the Bronx and Dolphins playing as well as they have. A few teams a little bit lackluster in terms of Penrith and Melbourne. We'll see what round 5 has in store for us.
Yep. Get on to the other form of footy. Da 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 da.
This had the classic Carlton feel of, oh yeah, we've had this lead, they lose this game. They didn't.
How many bullets were you sweating though in that fourth quarter?
A fair few. And
they were coming though. They were coming.
Oh, they were coming. And then the last sort of 45 seconds, I was like, we're home. We're home. The Cats.
Were you off the couch the last 45?
No, I was on the couch. It was Thursday night. Obviously had to back up for work the next morning. But yeah, a little sweaty, that's for sure. The Cats, on the other hand, they're 0-2, a little bit of a premiership hangover. Joel Selwood out of the equation through retirement. Paddy Dangerfield hasn't gotten off to the best start, although have run into some much improved teams in Carlton and Collingwood. Charlie Curnow, he's hot. Like, let's be honest. He boots 5. Yeah. And Sammy Walsh may or may not come back in week 3. The sky's the limit for the Blues. Geez, it would have been nice if they held on opening night against the Tigs to have the 8 points, but they've looked pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. Mm. Shout out to Jezek Cameron, booted 625 posies in a losing effort.
He's so good. Yeah. Well, I think they were talking on commentary. Is he the best player in the AFL at the moment?
It's a big call.
I thought so.
At what he does, at being a centre half forward who can go up and get, like, who the fuck gets 25 possessions and kicks 6 goals? Like, that's pretty freakish. The best player in the AFL I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch. Maybe guys like Marcus Bontempelli or Max Gawn or Lachie Neale or the likes.
Some midfielders probably
might have something to say of that. Is he the best at what he does in the AFL? Yeah, I think you can make an argument.
Yep. Mm. He kicks goals, unlike Harry Mackay.
I'd love him to sort out his goal kicking. Hey, the old round the corner. He loves to snap it from pretty much straight in front. He's a Coleman winner, so he probably kicks reasonably straight. But there are times, and
it's a bit of hoodoo at the moment, I think.
Well, there's a time as well where you want someone who's safe as houses. You want a Tony Lockett to go back there and just kick it straight down the H diddle when you don't really get that feeling with Big H. Clunked a few marks at the end of this one to fucking bury the game. But if there is a part of his game that he could improve on from a bunch of blokes that probably fucking couldn't kick it out this garage straight, if there is anything that he could improve on, it's probably that.
Hit the target.
Mm. Brisbane, Melbourne in the lights off bowl. Mm-hmm. We sort of spoke earlier at the start of the program about the lights going off at the Gabba, so we won't harp too much on this one. Let's talk more about the footy. Max Gawn, maybe the big story out of this one. Has he had a scan yet, Max? Could you chase that one up?
I think we were saying, reports were MCL, and it's not as bad as first thought. I think was the report I saw.
The mechanism didn't look like classic ACL.
Yeah. Well, we'll let Jimmy chase that up. The other one was the Jared Barry shoulder. By all accounts, he's just a bit sore. But there's nothing doing, was reports. Though competing bias in the family says that it looked worse than what he's letting on. But we'll have to wait and see. The doctor's given an official announcement on that.
Is this classic Lions go out there and look like one of the best teams in the comp, but it's at the Gabba? That's the big caveat. Yeah,
Lions at the Gabba are a bit different to kind of like West Coast out west. So their challenge, of course, will be playing in Victoria.
Any news there on Maxi?
Yes.
MCL?
Scans say MCL
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. Yeah. So
what a ready-made replacement in Big Brody Grundy to come in and step in and do the main ruck work for the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. And that's probably a decent outcome for Gawn as well. Just if it's a knee injury, 4 to 6 weeks is better than 6 months.
Yeah, that's it. And even with that 4 to 6 weeks, again, can sort of take his time to recover properly.
And he doesn't need to be rushed back or anything. That squad's good, and like we said, Grundy's ready to go.
Yeah, that's it.
Hot pies, boys. Really dished out the punishment in the prison bar game.
Did you see their chat
regarding?
It wasn't the only power outage this week for them. Putting a port Port Adelaide, the power to the sword.
So the lights turned off in this one too, did they?
Yes.
Boys, they're looking pretty good. Collingwood fans should start getting a little bit excited. Those Dacos boys.
We doubted them as well, and
they're so good.
so good. Yeah.
Dacos boys nearly 60 and 4 goals. You don't see this very often. No Port player had more than 21 touches. Sam Powell-Pepper and Ollie Wines getting 21 apiece. I think Port Adelaide come back to earth after a very good showing last week, and Collingwood fans can really be confident in the way that those Pies have started.
Yeah, Pies at this point are looking like a top team to play against those big ones, the Geelongs and the Melbournes of this competition. They look like they're ready to go there. And Port, I think, will be competitive this year, but they've run into, I guess, one of the top sides at the moment, and they're just red hot. Yeah, they'll have to do it for the rest of the year though. That'll be, I think, the Pies challenge.
Richmond go over to the Adelaide Oval and get the job done. They started hot and the Crows couldn't catch them. Shout out to young Samson Ryan. He's a Pambula product just down the south coast of New South Wales here. He was in his second game, booted 3. I think he went up to Brisbane Lions, couldn't come through their academy, and Richmond threw him a bone, and he's definitely taken the opportunity by the scruff of the neck. Rory Laird, always very good. He had 38 in a losing side. Hard to make of what Adelaide could be this year. I don't think that they're going to be... Well, I definitely don't think they'll be top 8 material, but I don't think they're sort of bottom 2.
They're not the worst team.
Yeah, I don't think... Yeah, I think like a gentleman...
Hawthorn's clearly shown that.
Yeah, we'll talk about them in a second. Let's talk about them right now. The Western Bulldogs have started horrendously, getting really...
Scroll down a little bit, Jimmy.
Really dished in their first 2 games. You get dished by Melbourne. You kind of understand it. You get dished by St Kilda. I don't think anyone really expected this.
St Kilda are what, 3rd in the moment of the ladder? It is very early.
Early.
They've won both their games. But crazy. Was it Steele that played with a broken collarbone in this one?
Possibly.
Yeah, Jimmy followed that for me. I think it was Steele. Played out the last quarter with a broken collarbone, and it's broken in 2 places. The bone's completely separated. It looks like a bad one.
That's big if Jack Steele's going to be out.
Jack Steele? I think it was Steele.
Yeah,
there you go.
Undergo surgery on Monday to repair broken collarbone.
Yeah, I saw scroll, see if they got the X-ray there. It's
not good.
It was bad. Clean break in 2 spots, and it's literally bones floating there, and they'll have to put that back in, and probably some pins to keep it in place.
That's a big out for them.
What does it say, Jimmy?
It says something about Jimmy Webster.
Yeah. Suffered the injury in the 3rd quarter.
Tough man to play a full quarter with the bone floating around in his shoulder. But that's a huge out for them. But they didn't need it against the Bulldogs, who, like you said, they've got a lot of name value on their list and just haven't been doing the job.
It's only 2 games to go off, but historically, like in the last few years, have been a very high-scoring team. And I don't know if it's just film work or...
I think I saw some statistics on their defensive work is actually like the worst in the league by far. Like their defensive effort is just not there at the moment. So they will really need to pull their socks up in that regards if they want to be competitive. Otherwise, they're going to be scoring bugger all and have other teams running around them.
North Melbourne go out and get a point win over there in Perth against Freo. Kanga.
That's a big
Roo. Yep. Alistair Clarkson, a lot had been spoken about his year off and where he would end up. He ends up at the Shin Boners and they're 2-0. Same amount of wins as what they got last year.
Yeah.
Lewis Davies, Uniacke, I think he's in his 3rd year now, and Harry Sheasel, 2 games.
Sheasel the Cheesel's too good.
Unreal. Nick Larkey actually sort of goes under the radar a little bit, but sort of shaping up as a reasonable key tall. This would be relief for North Melbourne fans, long-suffering fans, having to deal with all the rhetoric around moving them to Hobart and how shit they've been really for the last sort of 5+ years, to go out there and start 2-0 and knock off Freo, who were pretty handy. I think they led wire to wire. I think they led the whole game in this one. Look, no one expects them to be, up there playing for premierships this year, but the fact that they've got 2 on the board already, it's you like to see it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And the Dockers are no slouch as well. They're kind
Definitely
of
over there.
a dark horse team that can play into the 8 as we think.
I'll let you boys take us through Sunday. I need to do a little PP.
Sure.
Hopefully you've watched Essendon and Sydney look pretty good. Hawthorn, not so much.
Not so great.
No, Hawthorn, Sydney looking, well, on our flip side, Sydney looking dominant. No issues for them. They've got the young fellas there that just keep playing well and scoring a bulk goals. So, they've, what was that, a 70, 80 point difference in this one for them over Hawthorn, who struggled to score 37. So, Hawthorn, it's shaping up to not be their year.
Yeah, that's it.
This season.
Yeah. So, as you said, 81 points difference there. Logan McDonald scoring 5 goals, 1 behind. Joel Amati.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That one, right?
Amati, because he's a tall as well. And
so
I think he coming back from injury. I think he had a knee injury.
Yeah, right. So he scored another 4, 2, and Papley scored 2, 3 as well. So, obviously just being able to work it up the field and score bulk goals, obviously always helps you win games.
And Pess has put the note there of genuine concerns for the Hawks and potentially getting the spoon. From what we've seen through 2 weeks, it'll be a long year.
Talking about it in the NRL, looking at the AFL, the points against, they're just leaking bulk points at the moment, not really scoring too many.
Their percentage is very low. Western Bulldogs not too far behind, and then the Suns. Let's use that as a transition. Essendon beat the Suns. Suns, I think, have been a little bit more competitive in their games, but they're just not a great name value list. They really rely on Took Miller and Matt Rowan to do jobs for them to really lift that side, and it doesn't get any easier. I think they play Geelong next week, so. Did you catch any of this? The Bombers fan?
Catch bits and pieces of it. The Suns did seem to be really good in defence. I think their clearances might have been the one that was sort of keeping them ahead of the game. For most part, I was pretty nervous heading into the fourth quarter. Where it was all pretty much tied up. Our small forwards or whatever just couldn't really find the ball inside their 50 to score any goals, but. Did end up managing to win this one. Ended up quite comfortably winning this one, I suppose. Like you mentioned before, Took Miller, he had 31 disposals. I think to Essendon's credit, Zach Merritt, Darcy Parish also had 30-odd disposals as well. Will set a field with 28. So
I do feel bad for the Suns. You always look at their player stats, and it's usually full of the other teams. Up there in the top, and then Took Miller's in there.
Yep.
As I said before, they've got a couple of guys that they really rely on, and then outside of that, they're just a list that's still struggling.
Yeah.
And the final one was West Coast. In West Coast were beating GWS. Is that game?
They did.
They did win.
Yeah.
Yep, 19-point winners over there.
What Toby Green put up for him.
Yeah, kick 4. Always good. The standouts for West Coast. Jake Waterman kicking 4. Just going through a lot of Giants at the top of that list, which is interesting. Jaden Hunt kicking 2 off halfback. That's pretty impressive.
Well, they were leading. Oh no, don't worry, ignore me.
The orange team.
Yeah. It's the other way around. Yeah, so West Coast get a decent win there, and they're kind of both in the middle of the pack at the moment.
Although I do expect that to change.
Yeah, the West Coast will bump up then if that's not live.
No, that's a lot.
That would be
Live, yeah. So they've jumped up to 9th. There.
Battle of the West. Who do you reckon will have it this year?
Freo still.
Freo still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, early season. There's a lot of teams there in the bottom.
I'll actually play each other next week.
The Derby.
Derby. A lot of teams there that move up. Long season. Love to happen.
As long as Essendon stays up where they are at the moment.
It's an interesting top 8 at the moment.
Yeah, it's much like the league where a lot of the predictions haven't really come to fruition, albeit early days, but we'll see what happens.
Early. Come back and add us at round 10 and then we'll have more clarity on what's going to happen.
That's it.
Curry sets, fires, puts it up. Bang!
Quick run through the NBA. We'll start in the East. The Bucks and Celtics still way up top. The Bucks did play Denver and got smacked. Only one game, obviously.
Yeah.
Can't read into that too much.
The
but
two ones going up against each other?
Could be the finals. We're going to talk about these 76ers. Joel Embiid is into $1.67 for the MVP. His numbers across all categories looking ridiculous. James Harden missed today. I don't think he'll be out for too long. Goes into the Cavs and the Knicks. Julius Randle, he is playing unreal. Is essentially the Knicks are nothing without Julius Randle. He scored 57 in a loss to the Wolves earlier in the week.
Wow.
Heat starting to make that run up. Nets starting to have that slide down. As expected.
Yes, as we expected. I think it's quite interesting in the East. You've got, say, the big three. Cavs kind of trying to stay in touch for that, but then they're well clear of everyone else.
Yeah. It's almost like the Bucks and Celtics have been the big two all year, and now it's kind of like, well, when JoJo and he's on, like, is it a big three with the 76ers? And then, the Cavs, no one really expects the Cavs to be playing, Eastern Conference Finals, but...
they keep in touch at the moment.
And then you just come into this sort of log jam through the middle with the Knicks, Nets, Heat, Hawks, Raptors, Bulls, Wizards, Pacers, Magic.
Even Magic maybe if they've won 2 in a row. If they keep a run going, then yes, they get in there. But I just don't see outside of the top 3 and potentially 4. The other ones, not so sure about. And I think the top 3 have clinched, of course, by now. So
they have clinched. Monks, can you open up Sportsbet, our good unofficial sponsors, and look at the Eastern Conference odds? I'd be very surprised if there's anyone short outside of Celtics, Bucks, and 76ers. I think it would be a reasonable drop off. Eastern Conference, $2.10 for the Celtics, $2.88. Did I say Celtics? $2.10 for the Bucks,
yes.
$2.88 for the Celtics, $5.50 for the 76ers, and then a massive drop off to the Cavs at 17s,
and then an even bigger drop off. I think it just confirms what we said. Bucks and Celtics are clear to top. 76ers are staying within touch. The Cavs are trying to stay in touch, but everyone else is just blown out of the water.
I think the big talking point is it a 2-horse race or is it 3-horse race? I think it's 3. I think it's official with JoJo, with probably the MVP, with Tyrese Maxey, the way he's been playing.
James Harden, etc.
I think Harden healthy.
Embiid MVP chat leads me to say, it's probably a big 3. And they've been good over their last run as well.
Let's roll into the West, where it's maybe a few more teams might like to make a statement from a bit lower in the standings. The Nuggets are perennially at the top. They've won 50 games as of today, although did have a little bit of a shaky period in the last few weeks.
I think they've stabled it a little bit with 3 wins on the trot. And then the Grizzlies... Jar's been back, 3 matches or 2 matches?
I think 3 as of today, but they it's been a U2 with or without you. They can win without Ja Morant.
And won 5 straight. So they've been very good.
Jaren Jackson's showing why he was a in the All-Star game, he was putting up numbers, high 20s, mid 30s without Jar. I was bored in the dark. Desmond Bain still does a bit. Dylan Brooks, don't think he's the most likeable guy in the NBA, but he's pretty good. And what about Kennard gets jabbies? Yeah, whatever it is. Luke Kennard. He had 10 3-pointers yesterday. 10 of 11, if you don't mind. So not bad off the bench there. Yeah.
Yeah, dropped 30 off the bench is pretty good.
What about light me up, shine the beam?
Kings keep going.
Domantas Sabonis. I think I sent this, but he is on track. Yeah, he's
to break.
It's kind of like one of those fake, like NBA, like is it really a stat kind of thing? But
triple doubles, really.
Yeah, it's a very obscure record, very deep in the books. But yeah, it's when it's got. I guess it's when it's got Wilt Chamberlain's name next to it.
You chuck Wilt in there.
Yeah, it means something a little bit more.
He is in his first full season with the Kings. He's averaging 19 points, 12.5 rebounds, 7 assists per game whilst shooting 61% field goals. The only player in NBA history to have the same numbers, Wilt Chamberlain, 1966, 1967. Pretty handy company to be in there.
Yeah.
Yep. Suns, we spoke about it last week. KD doesn't look like it's going to be too long. We will anticipate his return pretty shortly. Clippers, Golden State Warriors, Wolves, Mavs. Mavs, Golden State, one of the weirder encounters that you will see in the NBA. It was one of those he said, she said, bullshit, Limp Bizkit. How you going? So the Mavs, they lost this one, I think it was Wednesday, Thursday night, to the Warriors. It was weird scenes where the ball was called to be Warriors. The Mavs thought it was theirs. So there was no one in the key playing defense. So Jordan Poole chucks it in. Warriors get a dunk.
They drain it. Yeah, and I think they were complaining about a ref direction that they had actually
pointed the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. Which
happens all the time in amateur sport.
Yes, yeah. So they buggered it up. So they've confused the players essentially, and then they've gone, wait, hold on, what's going on? But yeah. And on open basket, they drain it, and then they end up winning by 2 points, didn't they?
They did. It was in the third quarter.
Yeah. Well, I know the Mavs owner, Mr. Shark himself, which Cuban, that's the one, wanted to contest that result on this one. Whether they could, I think it's probably all amount to nothing, because like you said, it was in the third quarter, and you have plenty of opportunities to change it, like change the result. One bucket, I don't think is going to. In the third quarter is the story of this game.
It's also not Game 7 of the finals.
Yeah.
It was a shit show. It was hard viewing.
I will say though that it is, it is probably more important to the Mavs at the moment because they've been terrible essentially since the Kyrie trade, and now they're in 11th.
They're out.
So they're outside looking in at the moment. So yeah, this game matters to them. So that's probably the big difference there.
I mean, we'll get to them in a second, but the slide, like that whole, I guess 6 to
13.
12,
13. Like Trailblazers could win a couple games, and they're still there.
But
there's one game in it.
It's a function of all these other teams in the West playing well. The Pels have been playing well. The Lakers, we've got to talk about the Lakers.
Yeah.
No LeBron, no worries. They've been playing well. They've won 3 in a row. In a row. Hillbilly Kobe, Austin Reeves. He's a fan favourite. He drains threes. He's a big lanky white dude. And AD, I don't know if it's a chemistry thing with him and LeBron, or if it's just his team when LeBron's not playing. He's so good when LeBron doesn't play.
Also healthy. That's
true.
Maybe that's they've kind of got to a period where they're now in the season where he's played long minutes and long periods. That he's probably in his best basketball at the moment. So scary to think that maybe they could be better with LeBron, but you do raise a good question of, when does LeBron become a role player in this team and, hand it over to AT, which you wouldn't think.
It's still a ways off, I reckon.
Yeah, and then if but if they're then losing games, they go back to where the Lakers were at the start of the season. Questions will be asked. But they're doing all right at the moment. They've won 3 in a row, 7-3 of their last 10, and at 500, currently sitting in 8th spot. But it is a big logjam there. I include the Trailblazers. They're 3 games back.
Blazers,
they're 3 games back, but 12 through to 7 is 2 games apart. So there's heaps there, and the Warriors on the back of Klay Thompson playing really well have moved up. So starting to make their runs in there. So they'll be in the finals, and they're one of those teams that you don't want to be facing comes final time.
You boys get around March Madness? Any of that sort of college?
I've been seeing more of the memes in it. I've seen a lot of people not happy with Houston and maybe their aggressive style of basketball they play. Actually, Houston or Texas, one of the two.
Houston does have a uni.
Yes. So, but not a lot outside of that. I've seen a lot of underdogs winning and a lot of the big seeds also get knocked out, which is pretty standard, I guess, for March Madness. No, it's Texas. It is Texas. Yeah.
Longhorns. Hook 'em horns.
Yeah. But outside of that, no, I haven't been following it that closely. Been watching too much World Baseball Classic.
Shohei Ohtani.
That's not going to help.
Says hi. And March Madness, if you're into it, you're into it. Yeah. I suppose not too many Aussies are, although it's massive in the US.
It is. Yeah. Well, the college scene is huge over there, and it's their national championships, essentially. It always brings up the conversation about imagine if the NCAA, like the college football, did a tournament knockout style like March Madness.
Well, you can do 32 teams. It'd be half a season.
Yeah.
Luckily, they've brought in 4 in the last 10 years, which makes it a bit of fun.
Yes.
Is it down to 4? Is it?
No,
because it's like east. It's like north, south, east, west shit.
Yeah.
So what are they?
It's Elite 8, I think.
That would finish today, so we should have results.
So Yukon.
Actually, no, that's our day. So it's probably
Florida Atlantic.
Tomorrow. So you've got half of them. So you got Yukon and
Creighton. Who the hell is that?
And then if Texas. You scroll up, you'll have these guys got to play to
San Diego State, Miami. Yeah. Look, hands on hearts, no experts. We barely string together anything that's half intellectual about the NBA. So
we barely know how to speak our own language. So.
I myself am not very proficient in Korean.
Teach me how to speak English.
Righto, Marks. Hit that final round. It's going to be a quick one. Often we will talk about the NFL. There's not a lot going on at the moment. Soccer, International Week. England do Italy. They're doing the Euro qualifiers. We'll pick up on the EPL next episode when that resumes. But outside of that, it's pretty much F1 and a little bit of a card in the UFC.
Yeah, and in the NFL space, it's the running backs have been getting their deals finally, and we're in the 1 year deal mark at the moment. Bobby Wagner is probably the big name today, signing to go back to the Seahawks on a year. But we're at the back end of free agency, kind of now leading into pro days, and all the chat about. Is it going to be Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young or CJ Stroud for that first pick? But that'll happen for the next month until the draft happens. So that's 4 weeks away. But you are correct, F1. And I don't know if Jimmy wants to press some race car buttons for some meow, meow, meow.
I'm becoming a voiceover dude.
So Saudi Arabia was the Grand Prix last weekend. Perez did end up winning that from pole. We talked about Max Verstappen being $1.52 to podium. Starting 15th was crazy, and he still finished second. Was there after 25 laps. Was very quick. Some of the quotes I think from Mercedes were like, "That's the quickest car they've ever seen," kind of thing, and it really was very, very fast. Made overtaking look child's play. Alonso continues. He got his third place. A bit of back and forth with the FIA on some penalties for him, but he did retain his third position on some common sense. Mercedes are there and thereabouts. With probably the main second team. Alonso's probably playing overs at the moment for Aston Martin, with Stroll not finishing the race. Ferrari probably struggling at the start of the year so far. They're the third team. Then you've got the Alpines. Magnussen's doing a job for the Haas at the moment. But I guess the big story is McLaren's shooting themselves in the foot. Oscar, our man, started 8th, but lost his front wing on the first lap, so had to pit. And then, he and, McLaren allowed Oscar to overtake Norris late in this because he had a quicker car at that point. Norris officially, finishing second last with the 2 DNFs here, with only Valtteri Bottas, surprisingly, a lap down. But considering there's the 3 rookies ahead of the Wookiees,
someone do the noise.
You're the
soundbite guy.
I can't do it either.
I've not tried. Better than what I could have done.
Yeah, the Wookiees ahead of Norris kind of shows McLaren's in a bad spot at the moment. They're the only team to not score points, I believe.
Yes.
So they're last essentially, which is a huge fall off for them. They want to be competing. Worrying signs. But either way, no race this weekend, and then they're into the Australian GP. They're coming down here. So Ricardo's going to be around on the pit wall, etc. We will have, of course, Oscar as the local. Hopefully he can be in the top 10 maybe, do a job for McLaren. But at the moment, it's Red Bull being dominant, and we'll have to wait for the other teams to maybe close the gap a little bit. And, Red Bull are expecting the other team to come a bit closer, but that's where we are at the moment. They're so far out front, and we'll capitalise on this while they can.
That's it. Actually, back on McLaren, I think they fired their technical director during the week and broken up his position into 3 or 4 different positions to focus on different areas of the car.
Yeah.
They've got a massive upgrade apparently coming in April, May, I think they said. So
could be too late by then.
It's, by all accounts, they're not going to be competing for that 4th position.
They want to kind of maintain that. And I have grave concerns. Zach Brown hasn't been able to deliver a quality car to race consistently, and if they maintain where they are and finish down there, Zach Brown's job might be in trouble. The NFL's not for long leg. The F1's even shorter. So if you're not winning races, not competing, you're out.
Yep, that's it.
Verstappen hasn't won the Australian Grand Prix.
Interesting.
Reckon he does it this year?
Didn't know that.
COVID.
Yeah, true.
Leclerc. Bottas, Vettel.
Some of those names there,
Before his time, I suppose.
I mean, Perez has been racing really well. Ricardo coming across to Red Bull must have lit a fire under his seat.
Well, that is the conversation, because Max went for the fastest lap to get...
so you get the extra point to stay in front.
So he's 1 point ahead of Perez at the moment. So it is very, very, very close. So the only real direct competition to Verstappen at the moment is his teammate. So that'll have some interesting implications, I think. Later down, you talk about IPL, later down the season. But Alonso's probably, he's podium twice now. Whether they can maintain that over the course of the season is the big question for that team. But Alonso there is just showing his ilk and quality as a driver, even in his 40s. It'd be good to see him win a race this season.
Yeah, would be nice.
And I think that's basically F1 at the moment until we get into Thursday, Friday with it down here in Australia.
And then across the UFC that happened today.
Yes.
Yep. Corey the Sandman Sandhagen getting the win against Marlon Vera, and Holly Holm still kicking. She gets a win there against Yana Santos. Boys, did anyone see any of this, or just a bit of news?
Did not.
I did watch the main. I didn't see Holly Holm, who had a good outing. There wasn't a huge lot of name value on this card. But Corey Sandhagen really dominated this fight. I thought he only dropped one round. The fact that judge had a split decision here for Vera was madness. Because you look at the other ones, it's 50-45 and 49-46. And then it's, you have 48-47. Doesn't make sense.
Didn't mean to do it in this episode, but the judging needs to kick up the bum in the UFC, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's been a lot of questions. I guess it's come to the point where they're, are these guys, do they know what they're looking at kind of thing?
It's a joke.
How are they scoring it? Because you shouldn't have such different scoring in this one. Yeah. Especially like this when you can clearly see a guy dominated a lot of it out in this one. So, It's good for Sandhagen, good win, because Vera, I think, was third and he was fifth. And then he called out who's the guy that won last week?
Magomedov?
Something like that one. No, maybe it wasn't last week, the week before. Bantamweights. Yeah, that one. Who beat Jan? No? Was it on the Yarn card? Yeah, it was Yarn. Click on that one. The other fight. No.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. How do you say this dude's name?
Oh,
Merab. That's who I was thinking of.
Devashvili.
Yeah. Who of course won a very dominant fashion there. Who's also very good friends with Aljamain, so they're not going to compete against each other for a title. So we will. He's essentially a gatekeeper now. So if Sandhagen goes to 3, then potentially, he's got to fight the gatekeeper here to then fight the champion. But Henry Cejudo's still in that conversation in that division. So,
what about the fall of Petr Yan in the last couple of
He's dropped a few, hasn't he?
Yeah, so he's...
Imagine if he didn't throw the illegal knee, where would we be at? Because he was dominating that fight.
Yeah,
a bit of a fall off. The game changes very quickly, though. You can see that Aljamain really improved post, that failing. So, it's when does that happen? It's a very, very changey game. Like it changes very quickly. And surprisingly, you go back to Holly Holm at 41, I think, getting another win, and she signed a 6-fight deal with the UFC, essentially to make her last run at a belt in that division.
Yeah.
In the, I'm assuming, women's bantamweight for her.
Should be getting on.
Yeah, definitely. I said she was 41, didn't I? Yeah.
41, yeah.
Yeah.
She's 6 fights.
Mm-hmm. Which, would be her run. I think she's still ranked high in the top 10. So,
she's number 3 in the bantamweight.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and then UFC 287's when?
Week after next.
So in 2 weeks.
Easter.
We'll preview that when we get close to it. That's a big card.
Oh, huge.
Massive.
Pereira, Adesanya, round 2. Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal. Rob Font, Kevin Holland, Kevin Gastelum, all on the card. We'll have a look at that in the next episode, I suppose.
Yeah. And it's interesting on Masvidal because he's been in the news this week talking about if he wins this, him and Edwards still have beef. But I think Dana reconfirmed today that Colby's getting the next attempt at the belt. And then from there we will, which is probably the middle of the year, and then maybe the winner of this will then get another chance. So we'll see. But then you got to remember there's the Hazmat Ben Hamzat floating around there who could potentially fight either winners from these two divisions here. He wants to take on the middleweights as well as the welterweights currently.
Thank you to anyone that has tuned in to the Esky, whether you've caught us live on the YouTube or listening back during the week. Hope you're having a good week. I think we're here next week, and then Easter we'll see what's doing.
We'll work it out, Big fan of the Delhi Caps, that's what we were saying.
Thank you to Fenaru Sagar for joining us in the chat. Yes, Coley is king. If the year is 2018, my friend. Unfortunately, it's 2023. Caps win. Let's go, Caps.
Delhi Caps.
IPL heading up, hoping to speak to their media team and Blues and Dragons just win bulk games, probably.
Bombers and Dragons.
Maybe not Dragons.
Anyone that's not Dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree.
Let's
Thanks.
get that Dolphins run going.
We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.